can expect from this European Council on Thursday and on Friday. So what I hope, and what my group is hoping, and I think also the majority in this Parliament, is that we can end this summit, Mr. Barroso, with a more decisive, a more comprehensive, and I hope also a more bolder approach for the current crisis. Because let's be honest, this global approach, comprehensive approach of this current crisis, we don't have it today on the table, neither of the Council, neither of the Parliament. And I have also, Mr. Schulz, my questions, and some questions about rating agencies and the role that they are playing in the current crisis. But let's try to find the errors and the sources for the crisis in ourselves, and maybe not outside the European Union and outside these institutions. And let's be honest also on a second thing, the crisis is not over. Those who think that by giving some additional money to Greece is the end of this crisis around Greece and around the euro are wrong. This crisis is not over, and this crisis shall continue if, first of all, we don't find a structural solution for Greece, and we don't have a structural solution for Greece. And secondly, if we not create a real economic and political union in Europe. That shall be the end of the crisis around the euro and around Greece. Because again, is it possible to have one currency and 17 governments, 17 economic strategies, 70 bound markets as we have today? That doesn't exist elsewhere in the world. Only we in Europe, we think that we can have one monetary union and 17 different policies, 17 different governments and 17 different bond markets. And it's not we only as federalists were saying that in the European Parliament. Yesterday there was Mr. Lipsky, the current director head of the IMF, asking that Europe should create one political and economic union to face this crisis. And yesterday it was Mr. Geithner, the Minister of Finance of the US, who was saying, or maybe they can stop to talk with each other, let's create them an economic and political union. So if at the other side of the Atlantic they know what we have to do, why we have not the courage to make this enormous step forward to an economic and political union, Mr. President? That is the key question for the Council of tomorrow. And I think, and that's my second point, we need to help Greece not only in a defensive way. I think we need a bold austerity programme, and that is what is currently being discussed with the Greek government. And maybe there are ideas to go further than what they have on the table now. But we need also a positive plan for them. They cannot emerge from the crisis only based on austerity. They need also to have growth and investment. And we can deliver that with the European Union. Let's give, for example, guarantees for private investment. There is no longer private investment in Greece. Let's give them also loans of the European Investment Bank. And why not using a part of the privatization programme, not for the fiscal consolidation, but to create new investment and growth in Greece? And I have a request, Mr. Swoboda, not for Mr. Schulz now, but for Mr. Daul. Je vais le dire en français. Lui, il a la néo-démocratie.
He's got neo-democracy, the New Democracy Party, in his group, and I think we've got to be clear in saying these things. If we want to give money, or other countries want to give money to Greece, then there's a political consensus in Greece, and I think we can call on Mr. Daul here to convince his political friends to achieve that political consensus so that we can get those policies through. We need that. I know that's a very, very difficult task, a very onerous task that I'm giving you, Joseph, but I know that you'll be up to it. Because a country that's in a situation like that aspires to political unity. And it's not by playing the little political games that are going on in Greece that we're going to resolve it. And yes, Mr. Langen, I know as a Belgian, I have plenty of experience of that sort of thing over 9 years.
Mr. President, let's also be very honest. We need a bolder economic governance package than we have today on the table. And I have to ask something directly to President Barroso. Yesterday, the spokesman of the European Commission, the spokesman of the European Commission in the press conference said there was no need for more reversed QMV in the governance package. I should ask you, Mr. Barroso, to rectify this. And I should ask that the Commission is being, together with the European Parliament, in a more communitarian method for this economic governance package. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verhofstadt. Now, you put a question to Mr. Daul. Obviously, Mr. Daul wants to respond, so it's a matter of courtesy. He's waved his blue card, so I ask you whether you agree to have a question put to you, not just by Mr. Daul, but also by Mr. Hubertsakos. Mr. Daul first.
Oui, bien sûr.
Yes, of course. Well, very briefly, I want to put a question to the President of the Liberal Group. When he comes with his Liberal governments to be fully acting in solidarity across the different countries, well, at that point, I'm sure that with my group, in terms of Greece, we will be winning out on that, and I'd just like to recall that here in this hemicycle.
Mr. Verhofstadt, would you wish to respond to that question?
Well, yes, President, because when it comes to the majority of the countries that Mr. Daul referred to, we're actually in a coalition with the Christian Democrats, so I'm sure that will be possible. But I just want to say that here this afternoon, in the run-up to such an important European Council, we have got to be playing should we really be playing the card of partisan politics, in fact. Mr. Daul, it's not about pitching the Liberals against the EPP or the others against the Socialists. You know, what I'm trying to get you to do here is to convince your friends from New Democracy in Greece. And I've got lots of friends there too, because some of them have come over to my group, you know that very well, don't you? Some of them have come over to the Liberals. But anyway, they have got to act with a united front for the Greek people to get out of this crisis, and you, sir, can play a role in that whole situation. I'm counting on you.
I'll give the floor to Mr. Kovatsakos for another question, and Mr. Verhofstadt, please respond within 30 seconds. I'd take no longer than 30 seconds. Thank you. I was very pleased to hear you say that everyone knows that the Greek problem is a European problem. What is Greece's duty? It is to put in place the major structural reforms and privatise. But I'd like to inform you, because I'm afraid that you are ill-informed, the fundamental points of our reform. And New Democracy did not just agree to these. These proposals came from New Democracy, and the government has not been able to implement them in 18 months. That's the truth. Thank you. No, let's pretend that we're listening and give the floor to Mr. Ransdorf, who also has a question.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me. I listened very attentively, Mr. Verhofstadt, chairman of ALDE, and I would like to ask him whether it is true that your slogan is that Greece is everywhere, that Greece is not one member state of the European Union, but it is a state of general spirit, and Greece means that Greece is everywhere.
Mr. Verhofstadt, you have 30 seconds.
Mr. President, Chairman, I think that it's obvious that if we don't resolve the Greek problem, we shall have huge problems in the whole Eurozone. We have already in Portugal today, we have already in Ireland today. You know that today the difference in spreads today are more than 800 basic points between Portugal and Germany, between Ireland and Germany. So what we are doing, the solidarity that we needed from the beginning of this crisis, And that was not there is not only for Greece, has to be for all member states of the Eurozone. And it's because there was this lack of solidarity in December 2009 that we created a far bigger problem than the problem we have today and we are facing today.
Grazie. Ora